And so with that, welcome back to another reaction video. Today we're gonna be watching Malaysia versus Philippines. Which is best for travel? So this video is by Lost Leisure. I've been keeping in touch with him for quite a while, but I haven't watched this video yet, so I'm excited. Which one's better for travel? And on the other side, Lost, I've been doing a big travel series on the Philippines, so definitely check out his channel as well. But for now, let's see what I think about it.
Today, we're going to be finding out.
Alright, let's start it out from
Malaysia or the Philippines. Two beautiful travel destinations with breathtaking landscapes and endless possibilities. Today, we're going to be finding out which holds the adventure you're looking for in Southeast Asia.
First of all, gotta appreciate the British accent, I absolutely love it. And second of all, obviously all of these videos, they're more of a, let's say, sharing a travel experience. I made a video kind of like that as well, Thailand and Philippines. Obviously both places are gonna be amazing, I have no doubt about it, you already see it. Damn, that bag though. Been doing some pull-ups and rows.
What's up, beautiful people? And today we have a clash. We have a clash of titans. We've got Malaysia, we've got the Philippines. Which is best for travel? For those of you who are new around here, my name is Loz, and I have spent a lot of time in the past few years traveling around Southeast Asia and creating travel vlogs and generally having a very good time. Now, two of the countries I've spent
This guy got the brightest smile ever.
some of the most time in have been the Philippines and Malaysia. So today I thought I'd break it down and go through the experiences and what it's like to travel in each of these places. Probably the best thing to start with to gain an overview of either of these countries is culture. Now we're talking the religion, the people, the attitudes, and let's start with Malaysia. It's predominantly a Muslim country, and although this varies depending on whichever region you're going to, I would say this is generally quite noticeable wherever you are in the country. It might be in the way that people are dressing, or even just the way that there's call to prayer in the morning.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. I mean, that's definitely going to be a big difference in terms of both how it's going to look, also the experience.
And throughout the day. Now, the Philippines, owing to Spanish colonialism back in the 1500s, is predominantly a Christian country. Now, this has slightly different implications for each place. In Malaysia, you'll be expected to act and to dress slightly more conservatively. You'll find it harder to come across pork, which is a staple in the Philippines. In Malaysia, in a lot of places, you'll actually struggle to see it anywhere on a menu or being offered in any restaurant.
If you have to have your pork, you're gonna have a hard time in countries like that.
Means also because it's more of an island nation, there's loads of beaches, whereas in Malaysia you might be expected to dress slightly more conservatively. In the Philippines, there's definitely, in a lot of the places I've visited at least, more of a tendency to not worry about if people are walking around in smaller clothing. It's also important to remember that although there are definitely histories to remember, and there's lots of different smaller religions. The next category is experiences. Now, both offer a vast array of different things you can do. Both have beaches, both have incredible wildlife, but more often than not, I would say that they offer different kinds of adventures. The Philippines is a tropical beach island paradise. The first image that most people have when they think of the Philippines is that of islands and these incredible blue seas, and let me tell you right now, that is 100% true. These are some of the best beaches I've ever visited, some of the most incredible islands.
Damn, I gotta give it to Lost here. These drone shots, these islands, man, they look freaking amazing. Especially here, this one, 322. Anybody can tell me where that is? Right.
And its reputation as a beach destination is so well deserved. There's places like Coron and El Nido, which are more visited by tourists, and rightly so, because they're so beautiful. They have so many islands nearby. They have incredible stretches of beaches, but they also offer opportunities to get on a boat trip and go out for a few days and visit more off the beaten track places and go to your own island with just a few other people and spend the night there, either camping or in just a small island hut. We're talking beach bum paradise. But there is also so much more that it has to offer. While that might...
It looks a little bit like kind of like an island expedition that he did. I think he also did the one that I did in the Philippines with Kiluma. That looks like another one. I mean, this is definitely one of the best experiences you can have. It's epic.
Where the majority of travelers spend their time. It's important to remember that there's volcanoes, there's mountain provinces where you can watch the sun rise and it will come right over clouds. You can go to waterfalls, you've got rice terraces, and you've got hectic cities.
Ooh.
There's
The rice terraces, man.
so much that it has to offer. Malaysia, on the other hand, is more difficult to qualify with just one overarching image of the tourist activity there. You've got
I gotta say, for me, like, I've been to Malaysia a few times, but mostly it was Kuala Lumpur, and I'm really interested.
Peninsular Malaysia, you have the metropolis of Kuala Lumpur with all of its modernity, or you can go on an 8-hour bus and end up in the Cameron Highlands with tea plantations surrounding you. You can go to the city of Penang and be in foodie heaven with so many delicacies, or you can catch a ferry to an island like Tiaman Island where you can learn to dive, and you can also walk through jungles and have monkeys pass you overhead. You can go to an old colonial town, or you can even pop down to Singapore and experience another modern metropolis. And then you go to East Malaysia, and we're talking wildlife like nowhere else I've seen. Orangutans, crocodiles, proboscis monkeys.
Wow, that looks really interesting.
Hornbills, sun bears. We saw pygmy elephants crossing the Kinabatangan River. We saw proboscis monkeys with their huge bulbous noses from literally a few meters away. We saw millions of bats exit a cave, all in a long, huge line.
Oh, there's other things we're thinking we have from bats.
I mean, it was one of the most ridiculous feats of nature that I've ever seen. We spent time hiking through caves and jumping in tropical rivers, and there's even the opportunity to climb this huge mountain on Borneo, Mount Kinabalu, which we unfortunately didn't have time for, but for wildlife spotting and for hiking.
It looks really cool, but this is not a blue water paradise we're seeing right now.
For wildlife spotting and for hiking and for caving, East Malaysia really is a gem unlike any other.
Oh my god, amazing.
That's not to say the Philippines doesn't have...
This is the best. You know, sometimes people use like memes in betweens of videos, but he uses his own ones. I love that.
Wildlife, incredible wildlife too. You can go to the island of Bohol where they've got the tarsiers, and you can go diving where you'll see reef sharks, thresher sharks with their huge tails. And this is why it's so hard to choose between the two, because they offer such different experiences. The Philippines perhaps offers more of the adventurous experiences in the way of cliff jumping or canyoneering with Kawasan Falls. There's a lot of those kind of activities in the Philippines because it is an island nation.
Cambugahay Falls.
In Malaysia, it seems to be more sweaty jungle hikes with some wildlife
Ooh, I gotta say, I'm not sure if I'm about that.
spotting opportunities, and I guess it really depends on what you're after most.
So Lost is kind of like, yo, in the Philippines you have the super adventurous blue water lakes. In Malaysia, you have sweaty and humid hikes. So it really depends what you're after.
The next category I want to talk about is food. Now, for me, when I first went to Malaysia, I said it was one of the top countries for its culinary prowess that I'd ever visited. I mean, it's up there with Thailand and Italy, which is very big praise from me, and I can't get enough of the food in Malaysia. It takes influence from Indian and Chinese food culture and it puts it into one, and it has its own, and you're definitely going to be experiencing more heat, more chili, more spice in Malaysia, whereas in the Philippines it's more savoury. You're going to be having more meat or fish with rice, and it's going to be those savoury flavours, so that's definitely one difference. Another that I touched on slightly earlier in the video is the lack of pork or the presence of pork, depending on where you are. In Malaysia, you're going to struggle to find pork in some places, and then you'll go to the Philippines where pork is placed on a much higher pedestal. Lechon, the national dish of the Philippines, is revered by almost anyone who you'll speak to about it out there. There's also street side barbecues where there's loads of different cuts of pork, and it basically has a very large role in Filipino food. The Philippines also has the most delicious mango ever, but the crown for fruit is put onto Malaysia because that is the home of the king of fruit, the durian. Now this smelly...
I tried it once, I gotta say.
beast of a fruit isn't really for me. I will try it again at some point, but let's just say the last time I tried it, myself and my friends, we weren't the biggest fans. But it's one of those things that polarizes people. A lot of people love it, a lot of people hate it. It's not even allowed in a lot of public places because of the smell of it, but it's definitely something that you should probably try.
I can't do that.
No, just eat the seed. So just eat the
And while durian wasn't really my favourite, Malaysia in general had just such a high standard of food, and I enjoyed almost everything I had there. One place that deserves a very special mention is Georgetown, Penang, where you'll get incredible sweet delicacies, or you'll go to a street vendor and have this amazing food that you're literally watching being made right in front of you within minutes. Everyone raves about the food in Penang, and I just have to say, if you're a foodie and you're in Malaysia, you absolutely have to go there. The next category I want to talk about is ease of travel. In both of these countries, you're going to be able to get by with English. There's going to be, especially in the more touristy places, there's going to be most people.
Yeah, there was something that I was really surprised in Malaysia, like in the Philippines. I knew, like, first time before I came, I was like, yeah, they speak English. I was really interested how much, and I was super surprised how easy it was to get by. In Malaysia, I actually didn't expect that it's going to be also possible.
Converse in English to some degree, often to a very, very high degree. Now, I think this shouldn't reduce from the fact that if you're visiting a country, you should at least take the time to learn a few words.
Terima kasih.
Iya, sama-sama.
There are going to be some times, probably in each place, where it's going to be more of a struggle to converse in English. Now, most of the time it won't be a problem. There was places in the Philippines when I was on an island, and there was literally just kids, and they had an excellent command of English, which shows how much importance is being placed on it. Another thing is that in both countries, renting a scooter is pretty easy. I did this, especially in the Philippines, quite a bit. I would rent a scooter and go out for the day or out for a few days and just explore. This is definitely a way of travel that I personally find quite easy.
It's the best.
Free and quite rewarding because you can keep costs down, but you can also see whatever you want on your own schedule. So this is something that I recommend anyone who's visiting either of these countries. Philippines, I definitely found it more of a challenge to travel than I did in Malaysia on some days when we were going from place to place, or when I was visiting an island. This isn't to say that it was less enjoyable. It's just to say it's a completely different way of traveling, and you have to be prepared that some days won't go to plan, or some days things will take longer. Being an island nation, you're gonna have to get...
I mean, yeah, in the Philippines, traveling, like one of the biggest adventures is like hopping on a tricycle, hopping on a boat, going to the island, figuring out all the different steps. Like, it's, I gotta say I enjoyed it.
More ferries, or if you're on a shorter time,
like the local ferry, some of them like the speedboats, but then you have like a huge local ferry. Like when I went to Bantayan, I remember.
You're gonna have to get more flights. Now, this generally isn't too much of a problem because there's quite a lot of low-cost carriers like AirAsia or Cebu Pacific, but sometimes if you time it wrong, then it can take a bigger hit on your wallet. Now, this just means it takes...
I wasn't, like, in my opinion, it's a budget airline, but I was actually a little bit surprised that it's rather costly sometimes. Like, you have to pay for €100 for like a short distance. Like in Europe, usually you pay less for this type of distance, so...
It's a little bit more planning sometimes in the Philippines. And I mean, that can be the same in Malaysia as well. I just think I found it slightly more challenging in the Philippines.
So currently sitting in the middle of the sea, and it seems like we may be having a few engine difficulties.
The final thing I want to talk about today is
it's part of the experience. The engine has to go down, everybody feels like you're stuck forever, and then 10 minutes later you're like back to life.
Genuinely say I have no idea out of these two which I would say was more affordable. It's hard to pick because in either place you can get a meal for 50p or less. You can stay in a hostel and get a hostel bed for £5 or less per night. You can share a private room and get it for £5 per person per night or cheaper. Like, honestly, affordability is like neck and neck most of the way with these two countries. In general, the travel between cities is pretty comparable, I'd say, across from the Philippines or Malaysia, and it depends on if you're going to be flying more often than not. I'd say you're more likely to have to fly in the Philippines, or perhaps if you're in East Malaysia, but if you're in the Philippines, I'd say that's probably going to be the place where you're most likely to have to get more flights. But if you're going to be traveling over land, buses can be a few pounds, maybe up to £10 for a matter of hours on a bus. Or
for me, it's really cool to watch it because he went to really a lot of the similar places that I did. If I'm not mistaken, what is this? Is this a Cebu bus station? I've definitely been there as well. I think I took a bus down to Kawasan, I think.
On a luxurious sleeper bus overnight, travelling hundreds of miles, you might expect to pay £15 to £20. Doing things in the capital cities will often cost you more than it would elsewhere. For instance, in Malaysia, you can go up the KL Tower in the capital, and
Don't do it.
And it will cost you around about £20 to go to the viewing deck outside. It was definitely worth it for me, but it is going to be more expensive than other experiences you have in the country. In the Cameron Highlands, you can go there.
Like, I gotta say, for me, I felt Kuala Lumpur, like capital of Malaysia, was super affordable because usually I personally like don't really need to go, let's say, to the main lookout spot, things like that. I'd rather go up a bar that is like right next to it. After like traveling to a few places, that's kind of like more my attitude, that I don't need to go to all the hot spots. And I experienced actually Kuala Lumpur as being probably more affordable than Manila.
And have a half-day tour with a guide and only a few other people in your group for around about £8, with all of your entries paid, with all of the information you get from the guide. And you can see that there's definitely a discrepancy there because it depends on where you are in a country. They both have a lot that you can do for free or very little fees. You might pay £1 or £2 entrance to go to a waterfall, or you might give a tip to some kids that have led the way through to a waterfall for you from the road. I think if you get a scooter, it's going to cost you anywhere from a few pounds to £10 for the day. You're going to fill it with fuel and you can go on your own steam, and that is going to be pretty much the only expense that you incur while you
The best.
travel that day. In the Philippines, you'll probably be paying £20 for a day trip from Coron to visit different islands, or you'll be paying £20-ish to go canyoneering at the Kawasan Falls, which I highly recommend. You could go to the Orangutan Centre in East Malaysia, which will cost you about £6 to get in, and you'll be right up close and personal and seeing different orangutans if you're lucky. Or you might opt to go to the Kinabatangan River. We went for 3 days, all transport, all food, all guided, boat tours and walks included, and that cost us around about £100 per person. Now, if you're looking to do something similar for a few days in the Philippines, but you're going to be on a boat traveling to different islands, probably with a company like Big Dream Boatman or Tao, then that's going to cost you a few £100s. Now, it sounds like a lot of money, but this is one thing that I can definitely recommend splashing out on. Most people that you speak to that have been on one of these things, this is their favourite thing that they've done on their trip, their favourite thing they've done in the area or in the whole of the Philippines. I certainly had an absolute blast on it, and I think it's probably worth splashing out on some things on a trip, and this might be one of those things. There's different levels. There's levels of activities that are going to be very expensive. There's a lot of like mid-range, and also in both countries there's a lot where you can keep it really, really cheap. And that about rounds off this video pitting Malaysia against the Philippines and trying to work out which is going to be best for travel. I don't think there's a definitive answer. I think that for everyone who goes to either or both countries, they're going to have different quirks and different pros and different cons. But I hope that this video has helped highlight at least a few of those, and if you haven't been to either, I hope you get to go to one or both of them, because they are absolutely incredible places. If you've got any thoughts or comments to add, then please leave them down below in the comments. If you've enjoyed this video, please leave it a like, hit that subscribe button if you want to see more, and remember that you can go and check out all of the other vlogs that I've filmed in both of these countries if you want to see any of the places that I've mentioned here in more detail. Thank you so much for watching. Big love. This feels good around here.
Alright, I thought it was like a little clip at the end. I thought that maybe like behind the scenes or some more funny stuff, but overall, really cool video. Big props to you, Laws. On the other side, personally, to me it seemed like the countries are actually quite different to a certain extent. He said there were also like some blue beaches in Malaysia that looked really good, but overall, for me personally, judging from it, like the animals in Malaysia look really different. That looked really interesting. But when he said like sweaty, muddy hiking, I was like, nah. So for me, right now, I've been to Malaysia a little bit. Personally preferred the Philippines. That was also the reason why I did kind of like a similar video back in the day where I was like putting Philippines and Thailand next to each other, just like, let's say, contrasting, sharing two travel experiences. It's more of a travel inspiration video in general. Obviously people are always like, oh, which country is the better one? And that's why these videos tend to perform better. But overall, definitely make sure to check out Laos if you haven't seen my videos, let's say comparing travel experiences or Philippines in general on Dating Got a World, to see if you're not familiar yet. And we're gonna see each other very soon.